welcome to another episode of Black Lagoon Reviews.
Where we metaphorically slice and dice our way through horror films of old and new.
I'm Brian, not living on a nuclear test facility.
I'm Maniac Hacks, craven for baby meat.
Yeah, it's a good one. Let's talk after this recording. All right, this is episode 2 of Westember. Nick, tell us what we watched.
So we watched The Hills Have Eyes, your typical summer vacation.
Yeah.
A couple people die,
Yeah.
you lose your mom, you lose your dad, your baby almost gets eaten by a pack of cannibal people that are based off of a cannibal family out in Scotland.
Yeah, the weekend in St. Pete.
St. Petersburg, Russia?
Yeah,
Or-
Russia. I'm talking about,
If you're watching this right now, that means we either put this out on YouTube or you're subscribed to our Patreon account, which, if you are, we are forever indebted to you as cannibalistic slaves.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is in the contract. I think we dropped the ball adding that stipulation in, but, what are you going to do? All right. So we're going to do a quick spoiler-free review before diving into guts of the film. Oh, this is wonderful. This to me felt like it took all the things that were great about Last House and elevated them. And it is missing some of the supreme grittiness of Last House, but in a lot of other respects, it's clearly a more refined, well-executed film coming from an evolving mind. We can see Wes Craven really writing differently, directing differently. There are scenes in this film that were a lot more complicated and intricate, and it was great. It was wonderful.
I'm more of a fan of his earlier stuff, if you know what I mean.
I see.
But,
yeah, check out what Craven was doing before he was directing films.
I think that this definitely was a step up from The Last House. Regardless if we've kind of lightened the mood with how gritty his debut film was to this, I think that this is the better film overall. Everything has been amped up in the sense of atmospheric building and hopeless dread. I had a good time with this movie. Without further ado,
Guts the film.
let's get to the guts of the film. Dog guts.
And when there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth.
Okay, let me start by saying, in my current phase of my life, I've been reading screenplays, learning how to write them, and now I'm really appreciating good ideas. Like, this is such a great idea for a screenplay. These savage Americans living and hiding out on this military base, scavenging, the wildlife, the desert, and military surplus bins for sustenance. And it's a nuclear test facility. It just has so much going on in the backdrop. And we hardly ever see that, but we know it's there looming. We understand where we are. And it feels like a plausible explanation for how some of these people got the way they got. And then when you throw a family in the mix who are heading to Hollywood, right? And they clash. That's a screenplay. That's good.
A bit insufferable, some of these family members.
Oh.
But that doesn't mean that I didn't enjoy the movie overall. I just felt like some of these characters made a few stupid decisions, and that's putting it lightly. You are wasting valuable ammunition. But I love the cinematography. Yet again, Wes Craven does an amazing job. If you can feel the temperature from the movie itself, you have been fully immersed. The scene that really got me the most was the dog being gutted. It's so heartbreaking to see an animal have its life taken away.
And it actually had a point, which is good, because it established the amorality that you take up when you live off of wildlife. And then it also established the character arc we were going to get with this happy-go-lucky kind of useless kid breaking and then trying to protect his family but not having the skills to do it, which I thought was a really interesting choice, because it didn't feel like weak writing. It felt like finally a movie was talking about a family stranded somewhere, and they weren't all John Wicks. One didn't have a background as survivalism. One wasn't like a mechanic. They were just normal people trying to live, but had no capability of protecting themselves.
The protagonist killed every single one of them with a pencil.
Yeah.
A fucking pencil.
It isn't like, male fantasy, extend your disbelief. It was very much like, oh, this is what real life would look like. We're not all as tough as we think we are. We can't really defend ourselves as well as we think we would be able to in the moment. And I like that. There's a grittiness and realism to that. There's a humbling to that. And I thought it was really just well done. The family was believable. The death had weight to it, because even if I don't think any of the characters went out of their way to become protagonists or to fully develop themselves, it was clear that they were a unit. And it was clear that each death was an intense loss to one of them and all of them. And that was really effective, because we knew the only characters who can die are these characters, and every death is going to destroy their psyche. And that works.
The thing that I like about the cannibalistic family the most is that they're not dumb, bumbling idiots. They plan their attacks well crafted and just well organized, and they can make sounds like animals.
Amazing.
And set up brilliant traps to lead other people astray. So well done.
It would have been so easy just to make these crazy monsters, and instead they weren't these bumbling idiots. They really did have tact and cunning, and obviously that's what it would take to live in a place like that. A lot of cunning. It reminded me a lot of like hunter-gatherer tactics that you hear about. It made it scarier, the fact that they could talk and communicate and use radios. There's also like a hint of tribal politics. They don't get too much into world building, and we don't find like a book where one of the characters walks into the camp and is like, oh, for hundreds of years they've been living here. It started with the Great One, and then the Great One had offspring, and we don't need any of that nonsense. It's just they're here and these guys are here and they're going to collide. And I love that, because there's so much room for wondering how it all happened. And then for 30 seconds we hear from the gas station manager how this probably all came from just some strange birth that his wife had. It's just immediately, exposition is over, we're thrown into the movie, and it doesn't die down until the end. Amazing. So well executed. You don't realize how in danger you are. You go on a long highway through a desert, all it takes is your tire popping on one rock, and then suddenly your life is at risk. You thought you were driving to Hollywood, right? But now you might be dying in the desert, and no one might find you. It's excellent. It's a great idea for a screenplay. One thing I was wondering about is I'm surprised we didn't go down the route of watching their food supplies run out, of watching them want water. That could have really helped ratchet up the tension even more.
Yeah, instead of we're like frozen French fries out here.
Yeah, there was a sense of a lot of safety for as long as that RV fridge was running, that they'd be okay. And maybe there's an ounce of realism to that, assuming these people descended on them so quickly that they didn't even have time to run out of food or water. But that would have been an interesting backdrop, especially when we saw them raid the fridge. If there was a moment where they're like, everything's gone. Everything is gone.
Starve them out.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Well, they did raid the fridge and stuff.
Yeah, they did. That's what I mean. I wish we had a scene where they dealt with the aftermath of that.
They
we don't
took
have milk.
They took all the food, but thank God they left the Cokes.
Yeah.
But that blonde girl probably would have burned through the rest of the Cokes. Because how many fucking cans of Cokes did she go through? I noticed that she had like a huge Coke addiction.
Oh, I didn't pick up on that.
She was an annoying character.
It took a while for people to write women in horror movies, right? They always write them as these annoying damsels in distress. It's really stupid. We get that a lot in 70s, 80s films.
I mean, I get being in distress and stuff and watching loved ones die and having that break you down psychologically. That makes sense. But she just comes off as really unbearable.
Yeah, they didn't handle it right.
I was begging for her to be fucking killed off because I was just so tired and annoyed. Don't leave me, don't leave me, don't leave me. Just God, stop.
Very bad writing on that part. That is a pretty terrible way to make a character.
And the blonde-haired kid, aiming his gun at family members. having his finger on the trigger when he shouldn't. Gun safety should have been like something that his dad should have taught him, especially with him being a police officer. What pissed me off the most about his character was he kept the death of the dog a secret until shit started really unfolding, which by that time it was already too late. Like, I would have told everybody immediately. People need to be alert and out on the look for the potential threat of killers out in the desert with them. So irresponsible.
Yeah, and I think one of the stronger parts of this film is that he's a weak character. Like, I actually think that was a smart decision. And I would have liked to see that they, like, for instance, there's a saying in screenplays that if you foreshadow something, anything is believable. You can do anything you want if you foreshadow it. They didn't really foreshadow his lack of knowledge about using firearms. Like, what if we had a moment where he lost his dad, he sat down staring out at the desert and said, I don't even know how to use a gun. I didn't even know my dad well enough to know how to use a gun.
I think
that would have hit home.
I think it would have been a little bit more interesting if was it when they were prepping to go and travel out into the desert. You know, he had to leave one of the guns behind instead of like the kid would have tried to take the gun and the dad would have been like, no, you don't know how to use this, gives it to somebody else. That would have been like a clear, you know, simple way of doing that.
Yeah, and one thing I liked is there's even a sense of futility and anxiety about this kid trying to use a gun to protect his family when he's never had an accurate shot. To me, it adds to the dread, but I do wish they gave us more of a reason to believe why he is so incompetent, rather than just there's a bit of frustration involved in just watching, like, all right, hand the gun to the older guy. why do you have it? Could have easily attached it to his dad's death. It could have been a really powerful moment.
I cannot wait till we cover the remake, because
yeah,
I really, like, I don't get me wrong, I enjoy this movie, but I feel like I enjoy the remake a lot more.
Interesting. Okay. The remake is one of those films that either has scathingly terrible reviews or people really like it, and that'll be fun to get to and kind of piece apart.
Do we have any other points to make overall?
Eulogy time.
Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. May God be with this young man's soul. And may Ron Lane rest in peace.
Alrighty. We gotta kill the film.
How are we gonna do this? I say death by dog.
Death by two dogs. We need to honor the fallen canine. Death by two dogs. I say pulling from arm to arm, medieval torture style. And then the cactus in the mouth. It's a new paranoia. It's a new anxiety for me. That's rough.
Having a cactus shoved down your throat and then crucified and then set aflame.
Very, very scary. I do not like it. Dogs in cactus in the mouth.
Honestly, there's nothing that has gotten me more wrecked than that scene.
It's real tough to even think about.
Me being wrecked.
Oh, I thought you said wrecked, like you were destroyed by it.
No,
but, I mean, no, both of those things are tough to think about. That's okay.
Being torn apart by a pack of dogs.
The Hills Have Eyes, lost in the Nevada desert, on a military base, buried in the earth, torn into pieces. This film has been laid to rest. Nick, are you hearing voices?
Well, sometimes that is better.
Alright, so this one was published by Vitachil. It was published on the 27th of November 2008, titled Watch the Remake Instead. He gave it 4 stars out of 10. And it starts off by saying, Having seen parts of The Hills Have Eyes on TV, I was very excited to find this movie in the bargain sales department. I remembered the movie to be very grim and raw, but with bright colors and bizarre landscapes. Something you'd maybe rather not watch because of its harsh, realistic scenes of raw and indiscriminate violence and hellish freak characters. As soon as I started the movie, I discovered that this was the original version and not the remake that I had in mind. Quite a disappointment, I must say. It is a rather mild and clumsy freak show, and the good guys and girls are not really believable in their behavior. I should have been warned when I saw that Wes Craven directed this one. The splatter scenes are done in a very effortless way, especially the dog scenes where you'll never see the face of the man and the dog biting him at the same time. So yeah, one is constantly aware of the fact that you're watching something that has been manipulated, consequently not totally sucked into something real.
Interesting.
He
So
really doesn't like Wes Craven.
this film was created for $230,000. The reason Wes Craven filmed in the Nevada desert is because it was cheaper. His buddy told him it was cheaper, and then he went out there and he wrote the screenplay and they filmed something within their budget and made it great. So yeah, if you're coming for a fully polished, refined, high-budget horror experience, you're gonna need to calm down a bit and then watch the film for what it is.
I saw the remake first. I love the remake of The Hills Have Eyes. I was a kid. I saw this raw, uncut at a friend's house. So the experience of that movie really hit home for me, and I gave this movie a chance without picking it apart. I enjoyed this movie 100% without a doubt. That being said, I enjoy the remake more, and
Interesting.
we'll definitely get into that in the near future. So stay tuned.
All right, I have an interesting voice this time around. I couldn't. Apparently, Ebert and Siskel did talk about this movie, but it was at some point in their Siskel and Ebert show, and there are no transcripts of that, so I couldn't really search it on Google very well. However, I did find a interesting little review by one Caitlin Duffy. She's getting her PhD. She's studying 19th century American Gothic literature and horror cinema. She says, again, this is highly abridged, so if you want to read her full, it's a blog post. If you want to read her full blog post, you need to go to her website. After the overwhelmingly negative response to Last House, Craven wanted to move out of horror, but none of his film pitches received financial backing. Finally, he heard from a friend that it was incredibly easy and cheap to film in the Nevada deserts, and Craven wrote The Hills Have Eyes. She says, I'm interested in this film because of its representation of the eco-Gothic. This is where her academic stroke comes in, I think. It's slightly different because it's human military involvement that caused this part of the Nevada desert to turn Gothic. It's nuclear radiation. It is the hills that have eyes, and the hills who are watching and hunting the Carter family. Jupiter's clan have so degenerated that they have become part of the brutal natural landscape, rather than members of the human race. Additionally, there repeatedly are shots in which various members of the Carter family look out to the unrelenting bleakness of the Nevada desert in an attempt to find a source of their attacks. Unfortunately, they are met with nothing but darkness. All that to say, she liked the film, and she did an interesting breakdown of it in a different literary canon.
Imagine being murdered by a shrubbery.
Yeah, that'd be something. Yeah, shrubbery gone bad. Also, Carter family. That's also a famous traditional folk band from the early 20s or 30s, I think. I wonder if that has anything to do with it, with their old Americana undertones to this film. Are we ready for the final cut?
Final cut. Let's do it.
All right, buddy, start us off.
I thoroughly enjoyed this film. Again, I'm reiterating the same thing over and over again. When I do that, I mean it. I'm gonna have to give this movie a 7 out of 10.
Nice.
The soundtrack, the synths were amazing. The cinematography, amazing. Wes Craven did something special with this movie. The writing is impeccable. The gore is a bit noticeable. You know, it's kind of equated to George Romero's Dawn of the Dead, with the paint like blood,
Oh yeah.
but there's a charm to it, and I really fucking enjoy stuff like that. So yeah, 7 out of 10.
Great. Very good. And you gave Last House 6 out of 10, correct?
I'm pretty sure I did.
All right, I'm gonna try to keep track of these for Westember. All right, I gave Last House a 7 out of 10. Hills to me is a big step up. I think you had it right when you said there's a charm to some of the DIY parts of the film. There really is. For me, that's not a rationalization. For me, that is an actual benefit to the film. Sometimes films, like when you think about Evil Dead, they have such an underdog punching up feeling to them that it makes the film feel like a stage play unfolding before you. It's a really immersive, excellent, creative force that a lot of really well-polished, high-budget films don't have. And when you use that to your advantage, you can make a great film. To me, this had all of these tiny, charming little pieces all throughout. And what we ended up getting was a top-notch story. A lot of dread, a lot of just of grittiness. And while the grittiness was definitely pulled back from Last House, the realism is still there. And this it feels like you can read into it too, with this beautiful kind of collision of different people meeting up in the desert with this military base around them. There's such an amazing feeling to that.
I love the part where the old man is foreshadowing his death by telling the story about how he beat his own son with a crowbar, and then when we get this hulking form busting through the window, pulling him out. Such a terrifying scene, by the way,
and poetic, right? It works right into the story and the expedition
poetic
got.
And effective. I loved it.
Scenes
Well done.
like that elevated this movie above itself. It really made it transcend itself. That's why I'm giving it an 8.5. This film is nearly perfect.
It's such a shame that Wes Craven passed away, because I would have loved to see his iteration of Scream 5, and without him, the world feels lesser because of it in the cinema world. I feel like as we go along in his filmography, we're gonna see his craft truly bloom.
Yeah.
So far, so good. Though the Scream franchise was one of those movies that I was actually allowed to see as a kid, but it scarred me because I was horrified by public bathrooms.
Oh yeah.
Because of it. But overall, it left an everlasting effect on me growing up. And I can only thank Wes Craven for affecting my childhood in such a terrifying way. By the time we post this, it was like a couple of weeks ago, like a week or so ago, when his untimely death.
An anniversary of his death, right?
It was an anniversary of his death, and it was also the 40th anniversary of The Last House on the Left.
Right. Amazing coincidence. Love it. Debut film and the man himself. That's a nice note to end it on. If you're watching this again, you're either on YouTube or you're a patron. We're not sure what we're gonna do with it just yet, but
I feel like
guys.
You know what? I feel like this one does it for me. I feel like overall, I think we should post this one on YouTube.
Sure.
For sure.
I think that'd be great. I definitely want to kick off Westember with a review.
I really enjoyed. I enjoyed recording everything overall. I enjoyed my time.
Yeah.
And we hope that you guys enjoyed your time with our reaction and review.
Yes.
And we hope to continue to see you guys support us. You have no idea how much that means to us. Not just me, but us overall. We're going to continue to improve, and we're going to keep pushing and upping ourselves. And this beautiful animal right behind Brian.
Yep, my dog's ready to go to the bathroom. I love you guys. You know what? I'm going to take her out. She's going to have the best trip of her life. And this is for, I forgot the dogs' names. What were their names? Beast and Beauty?
Beauty and the Beast.
This is for them.
And don't let her off the leash, because God forbid she gets eviscerated by,
A
Anyways,
lovely image to put in a dog owner's mind.
you're welcome.
My girl.
I mean, hey, I have a rabbit, so
Yeah, very true.
we will see you in the next episode of West Timber.
All right. Goodbye. Thank you guys.